Hello everyone. Welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we want to continue with the to-do list that we've been building. If you are new here or you have no idea what I'm talking about, please kindly check out the previous video where we built out this to-do list as you are seeing on your screen. It's part of a React coding challenge question. Now we noticed a bug after building all of these items, and I'm going to show that quickly. So we check an item off our to-do list. We are done, fold the laundry, we walk the dog. Now let's delete fold the laundry. What we see here is that now walk the dog is no longer checked, and we still have in our completed task one item done. That is, one item is checked, but no item is really checked. So what's going on here is, if you look over at our to-dos, we are using the index, the position of each item, as the unique key. What then happens is, when we delete an item at index 1, index 2 now becomes index 1, but index 2 is still in our completed array, and all of this confusion is going on. So to rectify this, we want to give our items a unique ID, which will involve that we modify the structure of our items a bit. So let me go ahead and do that quickly. So now that's done, we've updated our to-dos. Our code is screaming at us. It doesn't understand what's going on anymore. So I'm just going to go ahead and comment out things that we do not really need right now. The first thing we're going to ensure is that we're able to display our to-do list as expected. So let's go over to our to-do list item. Since our data structure is changed, we can no longer see our to-do list. We have this error in our console that says that objects are not valid as React child found an object with ID item, whereas our structure is expecting an item with index. So let's make this, let's destructure what we expect from our to-dos. We expect an ID and we also expect an item. Now this should almost work, but we can see that index is now ID. Our index should be ID, and our item should be item. That is correct. So all we're doing is making change to index and making that ID. I'm going to close the console so we can see our playground, and everything does seem to function as it should. Of course, with the exception of the of TypeScript screaming at us. So let's see what the problem is. So property ID does not exist on type string. And from the last video, we did define a type here. So this is no longer an array of string, it's an array of object. So our object is ID. ID is a string. And we also have, okay, so we have ID as string. We have an item, which is also a string, and that is going to be an array type. And now we can also see that that error is cleared out, but we now have some other ones to take care of. So basically, most of our actions expect a number because we're using the index previously, and the index is a number. So let's go back to our code and fix that. So completed, we want to go to our completed array, which will no longer be an array of number, but an array of strings, since our IDs are going to be generated string. Now we also have undo complete, which expects a number. We want to make that basically all of our functions should no longer expect numbers. We want them to expect strings. And we'll still go back to this ones in a minute. We also see what else is making noise here. We already fixed this. Completed is now of type. Okay, change all of this here. I think this is one of the reasons why I really love TypeScript. It just shows you that there's a problem up front. That's why, if you can, I would advise that you actually define your type so you know when things change, why they are no longer working as they should. It helps, right? It's better than things are silently failing and you can't understand what's going on. I'm not shading JavaScript. Anyways, let's continue with our code. Let's try to fix what we've done. So the first thing I want to do is undo complete. Undo complete is when we check a box. And as we can see, it does check. It does function as it should, because all we are doing here is we are checking for the item, which is now a string, that it is not equal to the selected item ID which we are sending from our to-do list. Otherwise, we want to add that to, if the ID already is checked, we want to uncheck that. Otherwise, we want to add it to our array. We already discussed this in the last video. Please check that if you're a bit confused on what's going on here. So I'm going to check that, and we see that that works. Completed tasks is updated. We check another task. We can see that is updated. We check everything, in fact, is updated, and we can just go ahead and uncheck them, and our task is still completed. Our task is updated as it should. Next, we want to undo delete, and we can see that it has an error screaming at us here. So what is doing here is, what we are doing here for removing an item from our to-do is, we are filtering all the items from our array, which is now an array of objects, right? Then what we were doing previously was basically accessing the index, but as we said, index doesn't exist anymore. So we want to go ahead and define what does exist, which is our item. Our item exists, and in our item we have access to the ID. So once the ID is not equal to the index, we definitely want to remove that. So now we can delete an item, and it does delete as it should. I have to clean the chairs, so I'm going to definitely remove one. That's a bit confusing. I was like, whoa, what bug is going on here? I do want to add another item to make it for those feel like a good figure. What task? Okay, clean the paint, because I do love to clean. Cool. So let's also change this ID so we don't run into the error we were trying to avoid. Now we're going to try to see if we fix the problem we're experiencing before with items having the same ID. So I'm going to check walk the dog, completed task is updated, clean the pane, completed task is updated. So now when I delete walk the dog, total tasks is now 3, clean the pane is still checked because we didn't remove that ID from our completed to-dos, and it's still a completed task unless we delete it, right? So this functions as we expect it to, because we have unique IDs, which is cool. Now let's work on adding items to our to-do list. So we removed this because, yeah, basically the structure has to change, and we also have to add an item with the ID. We're not simply just adding the item anymore. We have to include the ID. So I commented that out, so we do it last. Let's go ahead and uncomment out our previous code, and we expect that it screams at us, which it does. Our item, we still want to trim it, and if item is not equal to an empty space, yes, we do want to catch that. The problem here is the structure that our to-dos now expect is different from what we are sending in. We are sending in a string, whereas it expects an ID and a string. And beneath all of this error that TypeScript is screaming at us, we can see that type string is not assignable to type of object, basically. So now I want to rectify that. The most straightforward thing to do is to define something like data, have our ID set to a random string. It seems as though my favorite number combination is SKSJ. I mean, every single ID has had it, and I was just typing randomly. It's so interesting to see that I do on my hand, or my brain favors a side of the keyboard. Anyways, let's continue. Item is going to be item. We can simply leave it as is. Item is equal to item, or to spell it out explicitly, item is item. And now we can pass this data into our to-dos. Basically, this is what we're saving, and that no longer screams at us, and that's fine. However, there's a major problem here, in that every item that we add to this array is going to have this string, which was the problem we were having before, and we do not want to have that. So I've gone over and searched for a combination of random strings that we can come up with. Random was my first intuition, but then it was just too short. I was trying to avoid the use of numbers as much as possible since we already introduced string as our ID. So I added to string and then also clip the string with substrings. So substring just basically limits the number of strings that we have. So every time we're going to have random strings. So this combination is foolproof. But let me know your thoughts about that. So instead of ID being this fixed string, we are going to have random string as our ID. And now this should work fine. And for every instance, we should have a random unique ID for all of our items. If you do want to clear out these to-dos, you can. You don't have to have an item previously in your to-do. I just used it because, well, it just helps to have that visual marker of what our to-do looks like and all of that good stuff. However, there are better explanation about this in the previous video. We did go in depth to building all of this. This is just building, fixing the bug we caught in the last video and building out more parts of what this function should look like. So let's go ahead and add an item to our to-do list. So I'm going to add clean the mat, another cleaning item, juggle. Okay, I'm just making up things now. Okay, no random combinations. Okay, cool, but I think that we get the point. We added some new items. I can click on any of them, click on ladybird, delete them, and basically they have unique IDs, so they are independent of each other really, which is what we truly want, and that fixes the bug that we caught in the last video. Now that we have that bug fixed, let's move on to, or let's add a new functionality to edit an item in our to-do list. Let's build off what we already have. I already gone ahead to import this pencil from React Icons, which was installed here, similarly to what we did for, similarly to what we did for the button, the delete button. So now that we have that icon for edit, I'm going to go ahead and add that to our list of action buttons. Make that edit button, make this undo edit, and also change this icon to the pencil that we have. Of course, we don't have undo edit, so it's screaming at us. So let's go here and do the due diligence. We want to have another function that says undo edit. We're adding it to the interface. Now I want to make sure to actually add it to the list of expected parameters, and all should be fine. Let's refresh to be sure that we are getting our icon. This icon does not look so great. For some reason, I don't like it. We'll come back to styling later. You know that for me, functionality is first, then style comes second. Now let's go ahead and also make sure we're defining edit here. So we have our edit, and now we want to define the function as expected by our components. So we're going to pass in the string. Cool. So now we have our string. What do we want to do? What we want to do is first we want to find the item that corresponds, that has the string, and then we want to populate our input field with the string so that then it's editable. So the first thing we want to do now is find this item in the string. In our to-dos, find the item in our to-dos that correlates with this string. So we're going to go ahead and say to-do item. And I'm going to use the to-dos. So we have our array of to-dos dot find. We use the find function in JavaScript. And then we want to find the item whose ID is equal to the index that we are passing in. And if we log our to-do item just to see that we are getting anything. So I'm opening the console. I'm going to click on walk the dog. Let me refresh that. And so we click on walk the dog, and we can see in the console that we have the ID, we have the item that we are searching for. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and set our to do. Our to do is our input field. Is different from set to do's, which is the array of inputs, but set to do is our input field. So we want to go ahead and add that item to our input field. So now what should happen is when an item is checked, is chosen to be edited, now we want to fold the laundry, and we can see that we can edit that in our input field. I can go ahead and write anything or fold the laundry at 2 p.m., close the console so we have more room. I add that, and we can see that we have that item in our to-do list. However, what this seem like we are adding a new item, whereas we just want to edit the item. So what we want to do now is we want to remove this item. Once we click on an item and add it to our to-do list, then it should be removed from our set to-dos. So let's go ahead and do that. We already have this in under delete. I'm going to copy that over, copy that code over, and we are updating our set to-dos, that basically whatever item is clicked on here, we want to remove it from our list of to do. So I'm going to go again, click on this item. So now fold the laundry is no longer in our item of to-do list. If it is to be edited, then we want to remove it. So I'm going to remove at 2 p.m. and say now, fold it now. Don't fold it at 2 p.m. Now that's added to our list. The next thing that we also want to check for is if I check an item, now is it completed? I'm like, okay, it's actually not completed because I forgot to walk the dog for 30 minutes. So I want to edit that and set a time. Now it is no longer in our item, but we can see that it's still completed. It's still marked as a completed task. So when we are editing a task, we want to basically remove it from our memory of things. We want to edit it. We made a mistake, so it should not be completed. It should not be still in the list, because then we don't know. I can choose, okay, I don't want to walk the dog again and just remove that, right? But now we still have a completed task, and it's not obvious on the screen where this completed task is coming from. It seemed like a bug. So we want to remove from the list, and we also want to remove from completed. So instead of copying over this code, I'm instead going to call the delete functionality, since we already have that, and passing the index. So once we edit an item, we are also kind of deleting it, but not necessarily losing it, because now we can set in our input field and play around with it if we so desire. Now let's fix this TypeScript screaming at us. It says to do item is possibly undefined. So what we want to do here, what ideally we should do is we are checking if to do item, basically if it exists in the string, and out in the world it is possible that it doesn't exist when you're dealing with servers and databases. Maybe there is a delay, maybe it doesn't exist basically. So it is a much better error that TypeScript is telling us that it is possibly undefined. It is a possibility. So instead, what we want to do here is say if to do item does exist, we should go ahead and carry out this action. Otherwise, we want to log if to do item. All right, cool. So now we have if to do item, we're checking. TypeScript is no longer scripting at all. We want to set our to-do item, want to undo all of that stuff. Otherwise, we want to console log item does not exist. Or ideally, we want to maybe trigger an action that shows the user, oh, item does not exist. So yeah, that's it for handling edits and also fixing the bug of unique IDs that we faced in the last video. I'm thinking of actually expanding this. It's been so much fun playing around with this, finding edge cases. It is simple, but it can also get really out of hand. I'm thinking about drag and drop function, a filter function, but let me know if that interests you. Um, Another bug that also caught when this app refreshed the other time. Let's see if okay, yes. So it says that you provide a checked prop to a form field without an unchanged handler. So if we go to our to-do list, we can see we have this input checked. It doesn't have an unchanged handler, and that's because when we have input fields, we typically work for change events, not click events. So this is wrong, and that's another bug that was maybe not so impactful, but under the hood, it doesn't work. So it's better to just fix that and make that on change rather than on click function. So that's all for this video. I'll be glad to know your thoughts. Please like and subscribe if this interests you. And thank you so much for your time. I hope to see you in the next video.